Hey everybody, this is editor Bill Hernandez with rockbandreviews.com in Miami, and today I have the honor and distinct pleasure to speak with David Libert. Now, David Libert has had such a long and interesting career in the music business, and he was encouraged to write a book about it, and so what did he do? He did just that. And now the result is an autobiography that is 50 plus years in the making, aptly entitled Rock and Roll Warrior, which was recently released on Sunset Blvd Books. It's a chronicle of David's inner circle life in the music industry as a popular international performer, singer-songwriter, tour manager, booking agent, and producer. Now, from his tenure as co-lead singer of the 60s pop hitmakers The Happenings to his role as tour manager for Alice Cooper's most legendary 70s tours and touring with Prince, Sheila E., The Runaways, and so many more, to managing funk R&B legend George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic, to eventually being imprisoned for dealing drugs in L.A. Wow. I mean, this is one rock and roll story you need to read. Good morning, David. Thank you for joining me today. And how's the California desert life treating you out there?
Not too bad. I love it out here. It's sort of a brisk day today. I don't think it's going to get much above the mid 50s, but we like it like that in the winter. So yeah, it's nice. It's good.
Now, I understand that your girlfriend was pretty much the cheerleader for you to write this book because for some reason you thought that your life story was not interesting enough.
Well, I suppose when you're just living your life from day to day, you just take it a day at a time. It really didn't seem to add up to something worth telling other people. But a lot of people over the last several years say, hey, Dave, you should write a book. You did so many things. And finally, my girlfriend, Angie, says, you know what? They're right. You do have a story worth telling. And so that was pretty much the basis for me deciding to write the book, and I started working on it seriously, I guess about three and a half years ago, and it just came out this past September.
I just got the digital copy from John Lappin 2 days ago, and I've gotten into the first chapter, and let me tell you, just from the first page, it just really grabs you. So I'm really interested into diving into it much further and completing the book. I mean, you definitely have a story to tell.
Well, that's good to hear because I actually wrote one.
Now, who were some of the bands you had an interest in growing up, even before the prospect or even the thought of getting into the music business? Who were you listening to?
When I was growing up, I used to listen to, the hit parade on WNEW. I grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, which is very close to New York City, so I would listen to all the New York stations. So every Saturday they would play the top 20 in a descending order. So I was listening to people like. I don't know. A lot of. I'm just trying to think. The Chordettes and I also started to listen to a station out of Newark, New Jersey, and they played a lot of doo-wop bands, and I think that was my original inspiration. They would play groups like the Paragons, the Jesters, the Diablos. These were doo-wop groups. And when I got into my teens, I found myself hanging out in the parking lot of the restaurant that we would frequent and harmonizing with my friends, doing all this shooby-doo-wah kind of songs. And then I guess our original intent was it seemed to be a good way to meet girls. But after a while, we started to realize, you know what, we're as good as or better than some of these groups that were here on the radio. Maybe we should take a more serious look at this. And that was the genesis, I guess, of the happenings. And that's when I started to pay a little bit more attention. And at that point, we started to pay more attention to bands like the Beach Boys and the Four Seasons, the Letterman.
Yeah, those were great bands that had these amazing harmonies.
Right, and I was fascinated with harmonies. In fact, I got deeper into it. I started to listen to bands like the Four Freshmen, the High Lows, the Double Six of Paris, Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross. These are more jazz-orientated vocal groups, very sophisticated harmony structures, and I just became fascinated with the whole thing.
Now, as a founding member of The Happenings, which is a 60s pop music group responsible for the hits See You in September and I Got Rhythm, this was your professional introduction into the music business. I mean, how did the idea to form the band come to fruition, which maybe you actually just answered that question just now. Just basically practicing on the street corners and everything, and,
once we started to maybe take a more serious look at all of this, not just hanging out on a street corner harmonizing, I started to hit the streets of Tin Pan Alley, which is a section in New York City in Manhattan on Broadway, where there are several buildings that house a lot of music publishing companies, record companies, production companies. A building like the Brill building, that's the most famous of them, but there were several buildings like that. So if I walked into the offices of a publishing company, I told them I was a songwriter. If it was a record company, I was in a band. Production company, I was in a singing group. And this went on for several weeks. And one day I walked into the offices of a company called Bright Tunes Production, which turned out to be a company owned by the Tokens, another singing group at the time, and they had a couple of huge hit records, The Lion Sleeps Tonight and Tonight I Fell in Love, but they were also producers. They produced the Chiffons, as a matter of fact, and had a couple of enormous hits with them as their producers. And they expressed an interest in our band. I think we were called the Four Graduates at that time, and offered me and Bobby Miranda, the Happenings lead singer, a job for $25 a week each, writing songs for them. And they gave us a room in their office. The room had a piano, so we could work in there every day. And part of the deal was that they would produce the Happenings. So now I found myself in a situation where I'm writing songs, I'm meeting people, and they knew an awful lot of people. They went to high school in Brooklyn, the Tokens, and were friendly, either went to high school with or were friendly with people that were in this clique of people that amazingly included Carole King, Barry Mann, Cynthia Weil, Al Cooper, Neil Diamond. Wow. I'm trying to think of Neil Sedaka. A very tight-knit clique of very talented people, and they would swap songs, and they come in to the Tokens office to hawk some of their wares, and it gave us an opportunity to meet these people and be influenced by their songwriting skills. And the first break we got was the Tokens decided to put a song that Bobby and I had written in their office as an album cut on one of the Chiffons albums. And this was like, big stuff to us. What a break. The Chiffons were just coming off another huge hit. Sweet Talking Guy was the single, and this was the album that they made for the single. And so that was sort of the beginning of us starting to feel like, gee, maybe we are a part of this music industry. And then the producer of Jerry and the Pacemakers, an English group,
Mm-hmm.
decided to record and release as a single one of the few songs that Bobby had written without me, called "Girl on a Swing," and this became just a huge step forward, because the producer of Jerry and the Pacemakers was also a guy named George Martin, who also produced the Beatles.
Yes.
Can you imagine?
Unbelievable.
And then WABC in New York made this single the pick hit of the week. Now we're hearing the song every hour on New York radio. This was just an amazing thing. And that was really the beginning of the break for us. And then, as promised, the Tokens did produce the happenings, and then a second recording session was "See You in September," which went on to be just an enormous hit, selling a couple of million copies, and the happenings were on the map.
I tell you, it's amazing from the start of you answering this question. If you had not gone down to Tin Pan Alley and started knocking on doors, who knows what would have happened to your life? I mean, just by doing that, you literally mapped out and cemented your whole life story pretty much.
Yeah, well, isn't that the way life is, Bill? I mean, a lot of it is taking advantage of opportunity, but a lot of those opportunities are there because of luck.
Yes.
Or just timing or circumstance. Of course, I believe you make your own luck as well, but still, right place, right time. It was amazing. Yeah, if it wasn't for Tin Pan Alley, I may be selling fertilizer valves over the phone to farmers in Iowa, for all we know. Who knows?
So true, so true. And then I think I had heard that you eventually became manager of the happenings and so forth.
Yes, we got rid of our manager pretty early in the game. He was a well-meaning guy, and we liked him, but I think he was overwhelmed when we started to have hit records. I don't think he was. It wasn't just. I don't think he was qualified enough to really bring it to the next level. So we took over the management ourselves, and I took over, I would say, 99% of the managerial duties of managing the happenings. And I liked it. It started to make me think that, this may not be a bad path to follow. I could manage other bands. I could, get into the whole business end. I was pretty sure, Bill, that I couldn't be a happening forever.
Yeah. Now, I'm assuming that you had to learn so many things along the way, as there were no college courses or any type of media to really teach you what was wrong or right about managing, tour managing, producing, and all of that.
No, there is no manual, and but I think my experience with the happenings and assuming the duties of the manager, I had to deal with the record company, the booking agency. I started to learn how it all worked, how all the pieces fit together. And when I finally did leave the happenings after a few years, I had that experience under my belt, so I knew how it all worked, and I decided to try to acquire as much knowledge as I possibly could along the way, so that I could use it for my life after the happenings.
Now, then, of course, you went into tour managing. What are some of the skills necessary to navigate a successful tour? I mean, I'm sure the list is long as infinity,
Well, I get a call one day from Johnny Podell, the booking agent for Alice Cooper. He tells me they're looking for a tour manager. Would I be interested? And I had I had been road managing a band called Rare Earth for several months. So I did have that experience under my belt. And of course, traveling with the Happenings, I had that experience under my belt. I took the job. I got hired. I thought I made the biggest mistake of my life, quite frankly, because I remember that first gig in Atlanta, Georgia. It just, my perception was 40 or 50 people just crawling all over all the equipment and gear like giant insects. And I said, oh my God, what did I get myself into? I thought I made the biggest mistake of my life. And Shep Gordon, who turned out to be my mentor, Alice's manager, said, just observe and kind of take notes in your mind. It'll all come together. You'll get the hang of it. And he was right. After about a week, it all seemed to come together. I started to figure out how it all worked. Of course, Alice Cooper, the band was becoming one of the biggest bands in the world. So I had the advantage or the disadvantage of being thrown into a situation that was done on a very high level. As crazy as these people looked, they were very well versed in their jobs. They knew exactly what they were doing. It was as crazy as it looked. It was really the Alice Cooper organization was an extremely well-oiled machine. Shep Gordon wouldn't tolerate anything less, quite frankly. So I learned how it all worked, how you had to act, how you had to rely on other people, the attitude that you had to have to get things done. Because the bottom line is, you got to get things done. You got to make it work. You have to make it function well, and that certainly was a great education for me to learn pretty much everything about the business, that Alice Cooper gig, which enabled me to go on life after Alice Cooper, doing all kinds of things in the music industry.
I find that sometimes being thrown into the fire is probably the best way to pick things up and learn.
Yeah, well, it certainly was the case in this particular situation. I learned from the best, and I learned on a very high level. And I don't think I don't think there is an education like that to acquire unless you're simply on the job, doing it, learning.
Now, rock and roll, of course, has its share of prima donnas, inflated egos, and such. How did you deal with the eccentricities of an artist?
Well, I think one of the things that enabled me to do that was I was an artist myself. I sort of had an idea of how an artist looked at things, perceived things, regarded things. And having been an artist myself, I think it gave me a really good advantage in being able to relate to these people. My first big superstar, Alice Cooper, was anything but a prima donna. I mean, this guy, he pretty much just wanted to be one of the guys. He was very easy to deal with, thank God. He just wanted things to run smoothly. Alice relied on a lot of people. There were a lot of props on stage and a lot of effects. And everybody had a lot of respect and admiration for him. So they all worked very hard to make sure that nothing ever went wrong. And he didn't want to end up looking like an idiot on stage if, something broke down or went wrong. So everybody worked really hard to make sure that never happened.
Now, what is one of the strangest requests you have seen in a band or artist's writer?
Well, let's see now.
I mean, you don't have to say who the band or artist is if you don't want, but I'm sure there's some crazy things that you see in those.
Well, I think the most, mostly it was more about technical aspects, but
Okay.
as far as, lighting and sound and things of that nature, electrical hookups. But, in Alice's rider, it's asked for, I can't remember how, maybe 4 cases of Budweiser.
Okay.
And 2 bottles of Seagram VO. And the bottle had to be sealed. It absolutely could not be opened. Alice had this fear of people slipping, acid or something into his drink. You heard all these horror stories backstage at Grateful Dead concerts. So we asked for far more beer and Seagram's VO than we actually needed. And there was a reason for that. We would, because we had to rely on the promoter, to get these things. And every once in a while, somebody would screw up and they'd get the wrong thing or whatever. So we got far more than we needed each night and put it in the rider. And we would take the excess beer and booze and stockpile it on our airplane. We always lease an airplane for our tours. So that, God forbid, the promoter failed to provide the necessary Budweiser and VO, we always had backup. Leave nothing up to chance, assume nothing. That was sort of my 2 rules of the road. And, adhere to those 2 rules, and far chances of something going wrong are greatly minimized.
Yeah.
And then if we ended up with so much beer and booze on the plane, we just left it for others to consume in the dressing room when we left. So that was all part of not having to worry about something as as mundane as everything is important. One little thing can go wrong, it could screw everything else up, for that matter. A piece of equipment or. So we were very, very careful to make sure that nothing went wrong. But I think the extra booze and beer in Alice Cooper's rider was sort of a safety measure, shall we say?
Yeah, and it seems very reasonable. I mean, I've heard some riders where there were things such as
no brown M&Ms.
I was just, dude, you're a mind reader. I was just gonna say, yeah, I only want green M&Ms and things like that, But Alice seems pretty reasonable.
Like that. We I guess that was Van Halen. I think I think they did it more as a joke, or their version of it was to see if the promoter was really paying attention to the details.
Sure.
We weren't looking to give anybody any harder a time than was absolutely necessary. Oh, we could give people a hard time. I'll tell you that if they failed in some way. For instance, when our plane landed, the promoter was required to provide 2 limousines for the band that could pull right up to the plane. 2 station wagons that we wanted by the plane when we landed. The promoter couldn't just say, "Well, come on over to Hertz and we'll get those limos. We'll get those station wagons for you." That was a no-no. We didn't want to waste the crew's time. We wanted the promoter to rent those vehicles and figure out how to get it over to the plane, so the guys could just jump in the vehicles and go to the gig. And also, it was a very intricate dance we were doing with all of that. They were just station wagons going straight to the gig. If a piece of gear had to go straight to the arena, we knew we could put it in the station wagon.
Sure.
And it would get delivered that way. There was a 12 or 14-foot box truck that the support act, who had the privilege of flying with us on the plane, their roadie's job, since they didn't have to be at the arena right away, was to unload the luggage and take it to the hotel and deliver it all. There was a bus for all the other extraneous people, the dancers, the journalists. So it was a very well thought out sort of, requirements on the rider. I'm talking about strictly about transportation now. Mm-hmm. But can you imagine the promoter? Where are the station wagons? Oh, well, let's go over to Hertz and we'll get them. Didn't you read the rider? Didn't we tell you? And we would make his life an absolute living hell.
Sure. I mean, that's throwing a wrench in the cog. It's going to screw.
Yeah, we have to go over to the terminal and then go through all of that. No, if the promoter didn't do it, and once they went through it once, if they were stupid enough to do that, they knew never to do that again. Yeah. So we didn't have green jelly beans on our rider, but we had some pretty strict requirements about how it, how to be, and but there was a reason for it all.
Of course.
It was a well choreographed, well orchestrated dance we were doing, and God help anybody that wasn't in step with us.
I mean, we could sit here and swap stories all day, but then people would not have to go out and buy the book. And there's a really great story about Guns N' Roses, and we'll just leave it at that because people need to go out and get this book so they can find out all these great stories, especially the one about Guns N' Roses. Now,
yeah, that's a good one. And they could buy the book at Amazon or any other places where they normally buy books. And if they want an autographed copy, all they have to do is go to rockandrollwarrior.com, and I'll get a autographed copy out to anybody that does that.
Well, you know what I'm doing when I get off this call, right? I'm going exactly right there, and I'm going to grab my hard copy because I only have the digital. And, right. I'm kind of old school, when you used to get on the subway in New York, find a newspaper sitting there, and you could pick it up and hold it and fold it and, feel it. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I like the tangibility about that. Now, with the new book and all that you've accomplished in this life so far, what are you looking forward to next?
A life of leisure and relaxation.
That sounds great. Do you still get out to concerts at all?
I occasionally go to concerts if they're low. I don't live in L.A. anymore. I'm about 125 miles east of L.A. Mm-hmm. But I'll go to concerts occasionally. Of course, every time Alice plays anywhere around here, I get invited. And
sure.
I usually go. I think I saw him at the Greek a few months ago. That was kind of cool, seeing my old friends and, hanging out with people that meant so much to me in my life at one time. But I have become, in my, I'll say semi-retirement, because I'm still just inundated with offers to do this, that, manage people, produce people, get them deals. I mean, there's people that just want to hire me to pick my brain. I turn down almost everything, unless it sounds like it really might be fun or interesting, or I can make some money. Listen, I'm going to be 80 in a couple of months. I'm no spring chicken anymore. I have devoted most of my time now in my semi-retirement as an animal rights activist.
Very good. Yes, I love that.
And as a matter of fact, I'm ensconced with canine right now as I'm talking to you. I have 3 rescues here and of my own, and I actively pursue foster homes for many other pets. And say what you will about Facebook and Instagram, social media and all of that. It's been a tremendous help in furthering the people understanding the plight of abandoned and abused and stray dogs, and finding homes for them and happy endings. So that's sort of what I've devoted my life to at this point in time.
Well, you certainly have had an amazing life. You're continuing to live that great life by doing other things that you're passionate about, like you said, with the animal rescue and such. And let's remind people, today we're talking with David Libert. Amazing. This is truly, in my 31 year career, one of my most favorite interviews, man. I could pick your brain. I could pick your brain forever. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with me and for rockbandreviews.com.
It's my pleasure, Bill. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
All right. Anytime you want to talk, we'll talk, buddy.